Welcome to True Crime Threads. Today we uncover 3 heartbreaking cases solved through shocking twists and relentless justice. Case 1: The disappearance of Aurora Lane. Aurora Lane, a 24-year-old aspiring artist, vanished on a cold February evening in the quiet town of Meadow Ridge. Known for her vibrant personality and stunning artwork, her sudden disappearance left the community in shock. Aurora had been preparing for a local art gallery exhibition that showcased her latest work, a collection inspired by the beauty of the surrounding countryside. That evening, she was last seen leaving the gallery after a successful opening night. She told her friends she would be heading home, but she never arrived. The next morning, her car was found abandoned by the riverbank, its engine still warm. Inside the vehicle were her purse and some scattered personal items, but Aurora was nowhere to be found. There were no signs of forced entry or struggle, and no one had witnessed anything unusual. The only clue left behind was a single muddy footprint near the river, leading into the dense woods nearby. A search party was quickly organized, but despite days of combing through the area, there was no sign of Aurora. As the days passed, fear grew in the town and speculation about her disappearance ran wild. Was she the victim of foul play, or had something far more tragic occurred? The investigation into her disappearance was just beginning. During their investigation, police discovered that Aurora had a reclusive neighbor, Henry Reed, a man in his 60s with a criminal record for petty theft. Henry lived in a dilapidated house next to Aurora's, isolated from the rest of the neighborhood. Despite his quiet, introverted nature, he had been seen on several occasions watching Aurora from his window, often during her late-night painting sessions. Neighbors recalled hearing raised voices from his home a week before Aurora disappeared, though no one knew what the argument was about. When police approached him, Henry seemed nervous but denied any involvement in her disappearance. He explained that he had no idea where she was and had not seen anything unusual the night she went missing. However, investigators noted his strange behavior. He seemed overly eager to deny any connection to the case and avoided direct eye contact. His home was searched, but nothing of significance was found. Despite his claims, Henry's proximity to the scene and his past record kept him under suspicion. His odd demeanor and refusal to cooperate made him a person of interest, but without concrete evidence, the police were forced to dig deeper, knowing they needed more than just suspicion to connect him to Aurora's disappearance. As the investigation into Aurora's disappearance continued, a breakthrough came when Hazel, Aurora's best friend, received a strange message on her phone. The message, sent from an unknown number, contained a blurry photo of Aurora standing near the riverbank, looking distressed. Along with the image, the text simply read, "I know what happened." Hazel was immediately shaken and brought the message to the police. After a detailed examination, the photo was traced back to a local man named Kyle Manning, who had once been involved in a brief but secret relationship with Aurora. He had disappeared from her life just weeks before her disappearance, and their relationship had ended abruptly after a heated argument. Kyle had kept his distance, but Hazel remembered how Aurora had mentioned feeling threatened by his sudden mood swings. The authorities tracked down Kyle, and when confronted with the photo, he denied sending the message but admitted he had been near the river that night. He claimed to have been walking alone, but his story didn't align with the evidence. Kyle's proximity to the scene raised suspicions, and as detectives dug deeper, they uncovered troubling details about his obsession with Aurora. It seemed like the case was about to take a dangerous turn. Kyle Manning's alibi began to unravel as the investigation dug deeper into his past. Police discovered that he had a history of stalking ex-girlfriends, a pattern that matched the way he had behaved towards Aurora before their breakup. His phone records showed that he had made multiple calls to Aurora in the days leading up to her disappearance, despite her attempts to distance herself from him. He had also been sending her cryptic, unsettling messages, warning her to be careful and stay out of his way. Detectives found a hidden drawer in his apartment filled with old photographs of Aurora, some taken without her knowledge. The chilling realization hit them: Kyle's obsession with her had not ended with their relationship, but had intensified in the weeks before she vanished. Confronted with the evidence, Kyle broke down and confessed. He admitted to following Aurora to the river that night, but his version of events was more disturbing than anyone expected. He claimed that he had tried to apologize and beg for her forgiveness, but when she rejected him, he snapped. In a fit of rage, he had taken her phone and thrown it into the river, then left her stranded in the woods. The confession stunned the investigators, who were now left to piece together the rest of the story. As the investigation continued, the search for Aurora's body grew more urgent. Kyle Manning's confession had led police to the wooded area near the river, where he claimed he had left her. Despite the chilling admission, they still couldn't find any sign of Aurora. Days turned into weeks, and the search efforts intensified, involving more volunteers, dogs, and even drones to cover more ground. Finally, a breakthrough came when a local fisherman who regularly frequented the river spotted something unusual in the water. Police quickly arrived and recovered Aurora's body, which had been submerged for over a week. The discovery provided much-needed closure to the case, but it also raised more questions. Autopsy results revealed that Aurora had died from blunt force trauma, not from drowning, which meant she had been attacked before being discarded in the water. The shocking twist left investigators reeling. Kyle's confession hadn't told the full truth. In a final interrogation, Kyle admitted that in his fit of rage, he had struck Aurora with a heavy rock, fatally injuring her before he left her near the river. The case had taken an unexpected turn, but justice for Aurora was finally on the horizon. Kyle was arrested and charged with murder, bringing an end to a heartbreaking mystery that had haunted the town for months. Case 2: The Betrayal of Isla Harper. Isla Harper, a 32-year-old mother of two, vanished on a quiet autumn afternoon. She had been running errands in the town of Riverside, just a short drive from her suburban home. Isla's family and friends described her as a caring and responsible woman, always making time for her children, her husband, and her job as a schoolteacher. That afternoon, she left her home around 2 p.m. to pick up some groceries, but by evening she hadn't returned. Her husband, Logan, initially thought she was running late. However, by nightfall, worry began to set in. Isla's phone went straight to voicemail, and her car was found abandoned near a secluded park, her purse still inside. Logan immediately contacted the police, and a search was launched. The scene was eerily quiet, with no sign of struggle or anything that would explain Isla's sudden disappearance. Her family was left in shock, struggling to comprehend how a woman so beloved could vanish without a trace. As detectives combed through the area, they uncovered a puzzling detail. Isla had left behind a strange note, written hastily, that simply read, "I need some time." The cryptic message raised more questions than it answered, setting the stage for an investigation that would reveal far darker secrets lurking beneath the surface. As the investigation into Isla Harper's disappearance progressed, attention turned to her husband, Logan. Initially, Logan was distraught, seemingly overwhelmed by the sudden loss of his wife. But as detectives began to dig deeper into the couple's life, a troubling picture started to emerge. Logan had recently been acting distant and distracted, and neighbors mentioned that the couple had been arguing more frequently. The tension between them had grown after Isla discovered messages on Logan's phone that suggested he had been having an affair with a colleague named Delilah James. Despite Isla confronting Logan about the affair, the arguments had only worsened. Logan insisted the relationship with Delilah was over, but Isla had become increasingly suspicious, noticing strange behavior and unexplained absences. Detectives learned that the affair had been going on for several months, and Isla had even begun to hint to her friends that she might be considering leaving Logan. However, she had never voiced any concrete plans, leaving everyone uncertain about what she might have done in response to the betrayal. Logan was questioned multiple times but consistently denied any involvement in her disappearance, claiming that he had no idea where she had gone. Still, his reluctance to fully cooperate with the investigation raised the suspicions of the police, who felt there was more to the story than he was letting on. As the investigation continued, a crucial lead surfaced when Delilah James, the woman involved in the affair with Logan, was brought in for questioning. Delilah seemed calm, almost too calm, as she recounted her interactions with Logan and their brief relationship. She confirmed that the affair had ended, but detectives noted a few inconsistencies in her statements. Delilah claimed that she and Logan had stopped seeing each other just a week before Isla's disappearance, but phone records told a different story. There were numerous calls and messages exchanged between them in the days leading up to Isla's vanishing, something Delilah had failed to mention. When confronted with this information, Delilah's demeanor shifted. She grew more defensive and claimed that Logan had promised to leave Isla for her, but she didn't want anything to do with the situation anymore. However, further investigation revealed that Delilah had visited the Harpers' home several times in the past month, always under the guise of needing to discuss work. Detectives now believed that Delilah knew more than she was letting on, especially when they learned that Isla had reportedly confronted her just days before her disappearance. The shocking possibility that Delilah might have been involved in Isla's disappearance began to grow, and the police knew they needed to uncover the truth before it was too late. As police continued to probe into the affair between Logan and Delilah, they discovered another unsettling piece of the puzzle: Logan's financial records. Detectives found that in the months leading up to Isla's disappearance, Logan had made several large, unexplained withdrawals from their joint bank account. When questioned about these transactions, Logan claimed they were for personal expenses, but he refused to elaborate further. The withdrawals were suspiciously timed, with the largest amount taken just days before Isla vanished. It raised questions about whether Logan had been planning something, perhaps to start a new life with Delilah. As the investigation shifted focus back to Logan, a more disturbing revelation came to light. A search of their home uncovered a hidden, handwritten letter from Isla to a close friend, in which she confided her growing fears about Logan and his increasingly erratic behavior. She had written that she believed he might be hiding something from her, and was worried about her safety. The letter was dated only days before she went missing, suggesting that Isla had been aware of the dangers around her. The discovery sent shockwaves through the investigation. Could Logan have been involved in his wife's disappearance? The pieces were beginning to fall into place, and police were now certain that Isla's disappearance was far more sinister than they had originally thought. The breakthrough in Isla's case came when a local hiker discovered her body in a remote section of Riverside Park, hidden deep in the woods. The discovery was made nearly 2 weeks after her disappearance, and it sent shockwaves through the community. Isla had been strangled, a clear sign of a violent struggle, and her body was positioned in a way that suggested the killer wanted it to be found. The location was not far from where Isla's car had been abandoned, and the area had been searched multiple times before. The fact that she had been so close all along, yet undetected, made the circumstances even more chilling. Police immediately brought Logan in for questioning again, this time under more intense scrutiny. During the interrogation, Logan's previously calm demeanor began to crack. Faced with the mounting evidence, including the letter from Isla and the strange withdrawals, he finally confessed. Logan admitted that he had murdered Isla in a fit of rage after an argument about the affair with Delilah. He had intended to start a new life with Delilah, but Isla's growing suspicions and the threat of her leaving him pushed him over the edge. After killing Isla, he had staged the scene to make it seem like she had run away. Logan's confession was a devastating blow to everyone who had known Isla, but it finally brought the justice her family had been desperately seeking. Phase 3: The Vanishing of Carson Blackwell. Carson Blackwell, a 29-year-old rising star in the local music scene, was last seen leaving his band's rehearsal late one night in early June. Known for his magnetic stage presence and undeniable talent, Carson had recently signed a promising record deal and was on the brink of something big. That evening, he had attended a practice session at the downtown studio, rehearsing new tracks for the band's upcoming tour. His friends and bandmates recalled that he had seemed in high spirits, eager for the opportunities that lay ahead. However, after leaving the studio, Carson never made it home. The next morning, his car was found abandoned on a quiet side street, keys still in the ignition, but there was no sign of Carson. His phone was missing, and his wallet was found on the front seat. With no evidence of foul play, authorities initially believed it might be a case of Carson simply walking away from his life to escape the pressure of his rising fame. But as hours turned into days, the uncertainty and fear set in. Carson's family, especially his younger sister, Ember, knew something was terribly wrong. Carson had no history of disappearing, and the idea of him abandoning everything, including his career, seemed out of character. The search for answers was just beginning. As the investigation into Carson Blackwell's disappearance deepened, detectives discovered unsettling details about his personal life that raised questions. Carson had been in a tumultuous relationship with a woman named Sadie, a fellow musician he had met at a local club. They had been dating for over a year, but their relationship was fraught with tension and jealousy. Friends of Carson reported that Sadie had been increasingly possessive of him in the months leading up to his disappearance, often showing up unannounced at his rehearsals and social gatherings. Some even suggested that Sadie's controlling behavior was affecting Carson's ability to focus on his music. When detectives spoke to Sadie, she seemed distraught but evasive. She claimed to have not seen Carson the night he vanished, insisting that he had left their apartment after a brief argument about his upcoming tour. However, Sadie's alibi seemed shaky. Phone records revealed that she had called Carson multiple times the evening he disappeared, and each call went unanswered. Furthermore, when police examined security footage from a nearby store, they found footage of Sadie driving by the area where Carson's car had been abandoned hours before he went missing. Her behavior was raising red flags, and it was becoming increasingly clear that she might know more than she was letting on. As detectives continued to scrutinize Sadie's involvement in Carson's disappearance, new evidence emerged that cast further suspicion on her. A week after Carson was last seen, police discovered that Sadie had sold some of Carson's personal belongings at a local pawn shop. Among the items was a vintage guitar that had been a gift from Carson's late mother, something he had always cherished. When questioned about the sale, Sadie became defensive, claiming that Carson had given her the guitar to sell before he left, but investigators found this story hard to believe. Carson had no history of giving away his prized possessions, and his family confirmed that he had planned to use the guitar in his upcoming performances. The discovery of the guitar sent a shockwave through the investigation. As it suggested that Sadie may have been involved in more than just an argument, it indicated a possible motive for something far darker. Detectives also found that just before Carson's disappearance, Sadie had been acting erratically, calling mutual friends and asking about Carson's whereabouts, even though she claimed to have no idea where he was. A closer look at Sadie's phone revealed that she had researched the perfect way to dispose of evidence in a fit of panic. The web of lies Sadie had woven was beginning to unravel, and detectives were now certain that she was hiding something crucial about Carson's disappearance. Detectives decided to dig deeper into Sadie's past, and what they found only made the case more troubling. Sadie had been involved in a series of toxic relationships, each marked by possessiveness and violence. In fact, one ex-boyfriend had reported her to the authorities after a heated confrontation in which Sadie had threatened to harm him. The pattern was becoming clear. Sadie had a history of lashing out when she felt betrayed or rejected, and Carson's rising success was only fueling her insecurities. Her jealousy over his career and his growing distance from her seemed to have pushed her to a breaking point. Police discovered that Sadie had access to Carson's apartment keys, and during a search of his home, they found evidence suggesting that she had been in his place after his disappearance. Items had been moved, and the apartment was in disarray, as if someone had been looking for something, perhaps something Carson had planned to take with him. The investigation also revealed that Sadie had tried to withdraw large sums of money from Carson's bank account, but the bank had flagged the transactions, suspecting fraud. All these pieces painted a damning picture of Sadie's possible involvement in Carson's disappearance, but there was still no direct evidence linking her to his fate. The pressure was mounting, and Sadie's story was beginning to fall apart. It seemed that the truth was within reach, but the final piece was still missing. The breakthrough in the case came when a construction worker, who had been working near a remote part of the city, came forward with a crucial piece of information. While taking a break, he had noticed a car parked along a quiet stretch of road late one evening, just a few hours after Carson had disappeared. The worker recalled seeing a woman, Sadie, getting out of the car and walking into the woods. He didn't think much of it at the time, but after hearing about Carson's disappearance, he realized that Sadie's presence near the woods was highly suspicious. The location was just a short distance from where Carson's phone was eventually found, discarded in a shallow stream. Police quickly followed up on the tip and discovered a small clearing in the woods where Carson's body had been hidden. His body was carefully concealed, making it clear that someone had intentionally tried to keep it from being discovered. The cause of death was blunt force trauma, indicating that Carson had been struck before being left in the woods. Confronted with the overwhelming evidence, Sadie finally confessed to the crime. She admitted to attacking Carson after a violent argument about his plans to break up with her. In her twisted mind, she believed that if she couldn't have him, no one else would. Sadie was arrested and charged with murder, bringing an end to a tragic and disturbing chapter in the local music scene.